All right, so let's dive into something pretty heavy and super relevant today.
Yep.
The unword, specifically, we're looking at how it's pronounced with an A at the end.
Right.
And you might be surprised to learn just how deep this goes.
Yeah.
It's way beyond just a word, right?
Absolutely.
So in this deep dive, we're going to be looking at where this word came from, how it shows up in those old slave narratives, the linguistic side of things, and of course the debate about using it today.
It's fascinating how this word's pronunciation has changed over time. You know, it really reflects some deep cultural and societal shifts.
For sure.
Especially within the Black community.
Absolutely. And we've got all these incredible sources like historical texts and linguistic analyses that can help us to understand this evolution. And get this, we're even looking at how the transatlantic slave trade itself played a role.
A lot of folks think the A ending is something new.
Oh, really?
But that's not the case at all.
Huh. Interesting.
We see it way back in historical records like the Federal Writers Project slave narratives from the 1930s.
Wow. So that's...
Those narratives, they captured the language of formerly enslaved people.
Yeah.
And that pronunciation was already there.
So this pronunciation isn't a modern invention,
Nope.
but something that's been around for generations.
Exactly.
Wow, that makes you think about how language evolves within a community, right?
Exactly, and it highlights that this specific pronunciation is deeply rooted in African American Vernacular English.
Okay, hold up. AAVE.
Right.
For those who aren't familiar.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely.
Because it feels like understanding that is key to this whole discussion.
AAVE is a dialect of English.
Okay.
With its own distinct grammatical rules and pronunciation patterns.
Right.
And it developed over time, influenced by the languages and speech patterns of enslaved Africans.
So the way folks were speaking back then is directly connected to these linguistic patterns that have been passed down.
Exactly.
That's a powerful thought.
It really is. Imagine the impact of the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
People were violently taken from their homes, stripped of their languages and their cultures.
Yeah.
AAVE emerged as a way to communicate, to connect and build community.
Right.
In the face of unimaginable hardship.
That adds a whole other layer to this, doesn't it? It's not just a word. It's about the resilience of language and culture under the harshest conditions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where things get even more complex.
Okay.
Because in modern times, some Black folks have reclaimed the N-word.
Okay.
With that A ending as a term of endearment or camaraderie, almost like a term of connection.
Right. But that's where the real controversy kicks in. Right. Because even if it's used in specific contexts within the Black community, it's still a word loaded with a painful history.
Reclaiming it doesn't erase that history of oppression and dehumanization.
Right.
And it's crucial to understand that for anyone outside of the Black community using this word, regardless of how it's pronounced, is absolutely unacceptable. It's still widely considered a slur.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure. It's a heavy word.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And that's what makes this conversation so difficult.
Right.
It's a word that carries a lot of weight, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of pain. And even when it's reclaimed, it's still controversial.
I hear you. It's like we're dealing with this tension between trying to take ownership of the word and acknowledging the very real harm it represents. Can you ever really separate those two things?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
Can a word that was used to inflict so much pain for so long ever truly be stripped of its negative baggage?
It makes you wonder if by trying to reclaim it, even with good intentions, we're actually giving it more power.
That's a really thought-provoking point. Even when that A pronunciation is used as a term of affection or connection within the Black community, it can still bring up a lot of trauma for others who've only experienced it as a weapon.
And let's be real, using any form of the N-word, even with the A ending, is risky business.
It is.
There's no guarantee that everyone will understand or accept the intention behind it.
It's a high-stakes situation.
Yeah.
For sure. And it raises the question of whether trying to reclaim a word so deeply rooted in suffering and abuse can ever truly work.
It's like trying to turn a sword into a plowshare. But the memory of what it was used for still lingers.
It does. We can't ignore the historical context, the evolution of the word within AAVE, or the deeply personal experiences that shape how people react to it.
So where does that leave us?
Right.
What are we supposed to take away from all of this information?
I think the big takeaway is that language is powerful.
Okay.
It's always changing, and it's a huge part of our cultural identity.
Right.
Yeah, it can also be dangerous.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about words with such a charged history.
So what you're saying is we need to be really careful about the words we choose and how they might affect others, even if we have good intentions.
This isn't about censorship. It's about being aware of the nuances, having open and honest conversations, and realizing that sometimes the best choice is not to use certain words at all.
That's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
It feels like this conversation is less about finding the right answer and more about asking the right questions.
It's a journey of understanding.
Yeah.
And acknowledging that there's always more to learn.
Right.
Is a crucial step.
I'm seeing the bigger picture now.
Yeah.
We've gone from historical texts to linguistic analysis to questions of cultural identity.
Exactly.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But I think you're right. The biggest takeaway is that we each have a responsibility to think about the impact of our words.
I couldn't agree more.
Right.
We have to be willing to listen, learn, and engage in these difficult but important conversations about sensitive topics.
So what does this all mean for our listeners out there? What do we want them to walk away with?
It means we need to think critically about the words we use and the messages we send.
Even if those words have been reclaimed or reinterpreted by certain communities.
And maybe, just maybe, this conversation can help us all to be more thoughtful, more empathetic,
absolutely,
and more aware of the power of language.
I agree.
To shape the world around us. So we've been digging deep into the history and the evolution of the N-word.
Yeah.
Looking at that pronunciation with the A at the end.
Right.
And it's clear that this topic is full of nuance and complexity.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of emotion tied up in this word.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
And I think we've all gained some valuable insights along the way. We've explored the word's origins.
Yeah.
Its appearance in those historical documents like the slave narratives and the crucial role of African American Vernacular English.
We've also wrestled with how it's being used today.
Right.
Especially the idea of reclaiming it.
Yeah. Within certain communities, while acknowledging the undeniable pain and harm.
Absolutely.
It still represents for so many.
We've talked about how context matters.
Right.
How good intentions don't erase the impact, and how even attempts at reclaiming a word can sometimes keep its negative power alive.
And it feels like the big question we've been grappling with is, can a word that was used to dehumanize and oppress for centuries ever truly be cleansed of those negative connotations?
That's the core of it, isn't it? It's a question with no easy answers.
For sure.
And it's one that each individual has to wrestle with on their own.
So for our listeners out there, we've provided a lot of information, a lot of historical context, and a lot of different perspectives.
Yes.
But now it's time to kind of turn the focus inward.
Yeah.
And really think about what this all means for each of us personally.
Right. Here's the question we want you to consider.
Okay.
Can a word truly be reclaimed after centuries of being used to inflict so much pain? And what does this tell us about the power of language and its impact on society as a whole?
We don't have all the answers.
Okay.
And there might not be any easy solutions.
Right.
What we do have is a responsibility to stay engaged in this dialogue.
Absolutely.
To keep learning and to be mindful of the words we choose.
Yes.
Knowing they have the power to hurt or to heal.
Language is a powerful force.
It is.
And it's up to each of us to decide how we want to use it. Right. We can use it to perpetuate harm, or we can use it to build bridges and foster understanding. Right. The choice is ours.
This has been a deep dive into a truly complex and sensitive issue.
Yeah.
We hope it's sparked some important conversations and encourage you to keep exploring.
Yes.
Keep questioning and keep striving to use your words for good.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.